Good morning, gardening friends. Well, the rains have let up. It is December 3rd, Sunday, about 9 o'clock, and everything is wet. I think we're very close to coming out of our drought situation. I wasn't certain I'd be able to get a video out today because of the rains. We still have some more that may be due today. But everything is soggy. But we did need the rain, so I'm not complaining. Haven't been out much outside. I've been doing a lot of inside work. I decided that little Christmas tree, the Norfolk Island pine that I had, was looking a little bare. So besides the little Dresden ornaments I put on it, I decided to fill it out with some baby's breath because that dries pretty nicely. So I bought a bunch of baby's breath and tucked it in here and there through the tree. And I'm going to put up my second tree today, hopefully. But yeah, everything here is very soggy. Let me get another sip of coffee. Oh, this fountain, this boiling pot that I have as a fountain, had been emptied. So in the course of the last couple of weeks, it has filled with rainwater. I'm still trying to discourage animals from coming to my backyard, so I'm trying to keep the water sparse here. Here you can see this is the rain we've had since Thursday, about 4¼ inches. And it's beautiful today, so, well, temperature-wise. It's going to get a little chilly next week. There's my pot of the grape hyacinths that I put the sedum in, as well as over here. Oh, and it looks like a little piece of mint is growing in it. Yeah, it has. I'll have to move the mint. It looks like for some reason I lost one of my papyrus. Well, no, I guess it still has some green coming. It had a second mound of papyrus in that pot, and I had cut the other one out and put it in there because that papyrus had died. And this one's doing far better, although it's small. I have to go very carefully down this wheelchair ramp because it may be slick. So nice and quiet right now. My grass seed, the winter rye, looks to have pretty much stayed where I put it. Most of my property is on the flat side. Ligularia is still blooming. I did notice in this area of the garden is where water tends to pond. And you can see the winter rye has floated over there into the corner. I'm going to have to put some mole pellets out over here because there's been significant upheaval in this particular area. Of course, you can see the holes underground here. I don't get too panicked about holes because I used to have 3 big oak trees here, and I'm assuming what a lot of those holes are just the spots where roots to the oak tree used to be, because they were probably 100-year-old oak trees that were taken out about 5-10 years ago. Back in here, you can see the ladyfinger palm and the ground palm. I did transplant some of this ground palm. The one that's laying down is one that I had transplanted there. They grow like aspidistra, which is behind them, which is the reason why I tend to keep them to the front of the garden beds. They're a little bit yellower than aspidistra. I was sold ground palm as pleated palm because the leaves. I don't know if you can see the ribbing on the leaves, versus aspidistra may look like it has ribs, but it's flat. Bad thing about ground palm is first touch of frost and it dies to the ground. It will come back, but it dies to the ground. And here you can see the difference fertilizer makes, because I put a lot of fertilizer underneath this palm tree. It does look like the Spanish moss caught, because I just bought that this last year, shipped here from Florida. It's hard to find live Spanish moss, but in any event, it looks like it really likes that spot. That fern at the top is a volunteer. I get ferns that spring up all over. I have a couple in my pots on the deck. They just sort of miraculously appear. But this ground palm gets fed by the runoff of all the fertilizer. And this ladyfinger palm has fully recovered from last winter, only to make it to this winter. It doesn't do much more than that, than stay green, but that's pretty much what most palms do. And these are the Serenoan repons. They were cuttings, or rootings, I should say, that I took. Here's another one over here. They're hard to get roots dug up. I've read that the roots don't sprout, don't regenerate. So you kind of want to take as much root as you can. And even though that's a little dinky plant, that root goes about 4 feet underground, just about to that other palm tree. Oh, I hear Oscar. Well, Oscar, I can't get food right now. You're going to have to wait. But in any event, the Serenoan repons came from this spot. So they will get big if you allow them to get big. What I did here is I didn't want them as large, so I cut them back to the ground. And this is now their second year, and they seem to be okay with staying small, like they know. Versus over here, I let these cuttings, or rootings I should say, get a little bigger. I have 2 over here. I had read that they don't transplant well, so I took 4 transplants, and every one of them caught. But the original, you can see, is huge. It's now over 6 foot tall. Oh, I'm blessed with a mosquito. I just happened to see a mosquito here after all that cold weather. Grass seed still looks good. It's in the ground. You can see the Encore azaleas, autumn carnation, are blooming nicely. This Loropetalum I transplanted from the front yard because I wanted a pair, and only one grew. It looks like even though all those leaves died back, it may still grow. We'll see. And Oscar's being lovable because he wants to be fed. He's late. He usually comes first thing in the morning, so since he wasn't there, there's no food out for him. But there will be. Here you can see this holly has definitely, oh my goodness, look at the sprouts all up and down the stick. Branch, I should say. I don't see anything off of this branch. So maybe that branch died, which is fine. I can cut it back to the ground. But you can see a lot of growth around the base of that. Everything is just so lush and wet. The palm fertilizer got a really good chance to soak in, because since I put the palm fertilizer down, it's probably rained about 10 inches worth of rain. Bottle brush will probably be even more spectacular next year, because now that it's in full sun, it has really thickened out. And I will need to pay attention to my, I think it's called prickly apple, or my datura. It's got a lot of these little fruits, and I want to catch some of the seeds. Because, of course, that was a seedling from last year. And my volunteer pecan, still doing well. Haven't really been outside for the last few days all that much because it has been pretty much raining constantly since Thursday. It'll sort of die off for a while and then come back. I think we're due for one more day. Then it's going to turn cold again. Fortunately, since the government has now, USDA has upped us to a 9A zone, I don't have to worry about frosts anymore. Yeah. And look at this little flower. I've been meaning to show it to you. Little weed in the grass, but a violet is blooming. It's definitely confused. I dug up a bunch of those violets from the lawn and put them in pots. I have them on my deck because I like the look of violets. I finally decided to put my ground orchids outside, especially because of all of this rain. These paper whites are still doing well. They will straighten up with time, but the rains have been beating them down. I am going to get to finishing the garage, hopefully in the next month. There's not much gardening to be done in the month of December, other than maintaining things and bringing stuff in for the frosts. So I'll be able to attack some more construction. This is the amount of water that we got since Thursday because I emptied and cleaned out that baptismal font or bird bath. I bought it. It was a baptismal font somewhere. In any event, it filled up halfway just in the rains we've had. I did notice some more of my Yuletide Sasanqua blooming. The buds kind of surprise you because they kind of look like sprouts for leaves, and then they kind of surprise you by sending out a flower. This will get huge. That used to be 20 foot tall, and I hacked it down probably, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago. Potato vine, air potato, has seen better days, but this is what it does in the fall. There's a little potato. There's a little potato. There's a little potato. Here's a big potato. They are grown in South America, and some of them are edible. However, some of them are also poisonous. So I would not recommend eating these things, and they're extremely invasive. Every one of those potatoes is guaranteed to sprout when it hits the ground. And once planted, these 2 vines here and there where the stakes are, I planted in the ground probably 3 or 4 years ago. And the frost killed the vine down to the ground, but they come back from the potatoes. So, you know, the original potatoes in the ground will survive a frost. And every one of these little ones up here, once they hit the ground, which they'll drop off with time, will also sprout. So they're extremely invasive. You have to be careful of the air potato. I'm still having, since we haven't had a frost hard enough to kill my angel's trumpets. Angel's trumpets are still blooming. And Oscar's wondering, why haven't you fed me? Why haven't you fed me? He's still working on my Thanksgiving turkey. I hacksaw off a little bit of it every other day or so and give it to him. I did notice these ivies have caught. Last year, I don't believe that one had any ivy on it. I know that one did not. So I have successfully propagated the ivy from the last topiary form and spread them around. What I do is you just let them grow along the ground and they'll send out roots, and then you can plant them wherever you want to plant them. I just want them growing up the obelisks. Okay, Oscar, don't get under my feet. Yeah? Oscar is a feral cat, and he will let you pet. He will let me pet him up until the point I give him food, and then he disappears. Here, there's not a lot new going on. I do see the grass seed has pretty much stayed in place, maybe a little migration over there. I guarantee you that the grass will sprout here where I don't want it first, as opposed to sprouting in the grassy area where I do want it. It's one of those unwritten rules of nature. Things will always grow where you don't want them to grow. My dill is still looking good. I don't use a lot of dill, but I do like to use it in my cooking. It's great for pickling. I used to like to pickle when I lived up in New York, but don't really have room for the cucumbers down here. And here you can see the flowers along the front are looking pretty good, beat down from the rain. I did seed all of this as well along the side yard. Oh, the ants have been busy. Corner still looks pretty good. Yeah, I put seed all along the sidewalk over here. I see all the color has disappeared from, I believe it was my Fire Chief arborvitae. When I planted it, it was more red, but apparently it's a nice bright green. Means it's healthy. Maybe when the colder weather comes, it'll flush them a little more pink. It looks like my new palm tree, that's a Mediterranean fan palm, is starting. I did fertilize it, and you can still see the granular fertilizer at the base. So it's still washing in, but it has greened up. It used to be very yellow looking. Still got new flower growth on the cassia, and a bunch of new sprouts all along the stem. It'll keep doing fine until frost nips it. Back in here, this is one of the new gardenias I planted, and it's turned nice and green. Back in here, the Encore azaleas are still putting out. Even the spindly looking one, I cut it back severely last year because half of it had died, and it is sprouting back. It was pretty much cut down to the ground, so it has come back nicely. Oh, the birds are all eating here. I walked out here earlier today to see if there was any damage. I don't really have damage anymore in the winds or the weather because the big trees are gone. I always used to have twigs down or branches down, and I don't get that anymore. Thank God. Yay! Here's my unknown white camellia starting to bloom. It's a double. I like things that look like carnations. I'll take a video of it, but I see a bunch of buds are to come. It's the white equivalent of the, I think it's Master Sergeant or Sergeant Major. There's it's basically a red double, and it tends to have in the center puff, there are like from the four corners, the petals fold over upon themselves. So when you look down on it, you see like four clusters folded in the middle, and then the outer petals. Well, that's the white equivalent of it, which is why I liked it. Years ago, there used to be well, there still is a flea market, but there was a little old lady with the little 50s horn-rimmed black glasses. I don't remember if they had sequins on, not sequins, but the little crystals on them or not. But she used to sell exclusively her own camellias. And of course, I've told you before, I don't buy a camellia until I see it bloom, because I've had a couple of times where I bought something that was named something, but when it bloomed, it didn't look anything like what it was supposed to be. And sometimes you have reversion. I believe it's called candy cane in the backyard, which is mostly white speckled red, and occasionally a branch will mutate to just all red. But it's not a pretty red, it's like a mauvey red. It's puce. That's it, it's puce. But not a pretty color. I actually dug one of those camellias up and destroyed it. That was the spot where my female statue is in the backyard. There used to be a camellia under her. But that's about it for today. Just a walk around. Bananas are putting on their fall color. And the camellias, just like I said before, are just loaded with buds. So unless we have a very hard frost, which again we have nothing to worry about now that we are a zone 9A, comes along, they'll bloom nicely. So I better go back there and feed Oscar, because he has been very patiently rolling around in my grass seed. Have a good week. Until next time.